Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. Today we're going to be talking about water softeners. We'd like to thank Katherine Johnson. She's been liking and sharing our podcast. A couple of the pioneers of water softeners was Culligan and Morton. And Emmett Culligan, he started working in the 1920s for a water softening company, and he designed his own system and started his own business in 1924 and developed just a huge company. And they still have some of the top-rated water softeners.
That's cool.
And then Joy Morton, in 1886, he acquired the Chicago Salt Distribution Company, and he named it Joy Morton and Company. And then in 1910, it became Morton Salt.
That's funny.
Yeah, what's interesting about the Mortons, in 1922, Joy Morton established the Morton Arboretum here around us in Lisle, Illinois. They have over 4,100 different trees, shrubs, plants, flowers. It's just a beautiful place. And then his dad is the one who founded Arbor Day in the U.S. in 1872.
Really?
So very interesting, huh?
What does it have to do with water softeners?
They're just cool. Morton's cool.
When did they come up with their logo?
The Morton Salt Girl?
Yeah.
So in 1940, so in the early days of, having salt around the house, if you'd ever collected too much moisture, if it was too humid, the salt would all clump together.
Really?
So what they did was they added magnesium carbonate to the salt, and what this does is it keeps it from bunching together. So their logo was, when it rains, it pours. So even if it's real damp outside,
That's funny.
It still pours. Yeah, so it's funny. But what they found out was too much magnesium carbonate becomes a laxative.
Oh, bummer.
So they changed the chemical, and now it's calcium silicate. So you don't have to worry about using too much salt at the table.
The reason why you want a water softener is because you have hard water, right?
Right.
So let's start off with, what is hard water?
So water that has a very high mineral count, mainly calcium and magnesium, is considered hard water. And so water is picking up all these minerals as it works its way through the soil, coming in contact with rocks. 85% of the households in the U.S. have hard water.
Wow, that's amazing.
And so these minerals, what's wild is it interacts with soap and detergent, and it reduces their effectiveness. So they say that if you have soft water, you can actually reduce the amount of laundry detergent you use by 50%.
Wow.
Plus, hard water, it's leaving those scale deposits, which can shorten the life of your plumbing parts, your appliances. It can make your laundry stiff. It leaves all deposits on dishes, glasses, on your tub and your shower. It's leaving all those marks that now you have to use chemicals to get rid of. It can dry out your skin. It causes itching. And then it can clog up your shower heads.
How do you know if you have hard water?
So you can have it tested, and there's kits you can buy. There's also just a simple thing you can do just to kind of get a feel whether you think you have hard water. You can take 6 or 7 drops of liquid soap, and you put it into a plastic water bottle, put some water in there, shake it really well. If it gets full of suds, your water is fairly soft. But if it's just a soapy film on top, and there's no real sudsing,
right,
then you have hard water.
Really?
And then you should really go after it and test it. And you could also go online, and there's a lot of sites that'll let you know your area and the hardness of your water. So if you have soft water, it's less than 1 grain per gallon. Slightly hard water is between 1 to 3.5 grains per gallon. Moderately hard, 3.5 to 7. Hard is 7 to 10.5, and then anything over 10.5 is considered very hard. I was reading a couple sites where some people were saying they really like the taste of hard water and they think it's much healthier because of all the minerals. But there was a study done by the National Academy of Sciences, and it says that drinking hard water really doesn't add very much calcium or magnesium to your diet versus all the damage it does to your appliances. The amount of soap, the extra soap you have to use, And then the reduction in the efficiency of your water heater can be up to 20 to 30%.
Wow, that's
especially,
crazy.
Yeah, especially if you have a gas water heater. Those minerals build up in the bottom of the tank, and it insulates it. So the burner is trying to heat the water, and that buildup of calcium and magnesium and iron, it just insulates it. And what can also happen is you can get little hot spots. So those minerals get so hot that they start to crack the liner inside the water heater.
So it's really not worth it.
No.
What are the types of water softeners?
So you have four main types. You have traditional water softeners, which use salt. You have salt-free, primarily TAC, template assisted crystallization. You have electronic water softeners and magnetic. So with the salt-free styles, this TAC, they have these beads that have a negatively charged bead in there, and the minerals are positively charged. They grab onto it, and it actually changes the structure. Now, it doesn't remove them from the water, so you're really not softening the water as much as you're changing the magnesium and the calcium. You're creating these long crystals that no longer stick to the pipes as easily.
That's good.
And then as they build up on these beads, they break off, and then they flow through your system. So that's one type. They're doing a lot of research on this because it's salt-free. You've got electronic water softeners. They actually change the minerals so that they don't stick as easily, so they're changing the positively charged nature of the minerals.
Right.
And then you have magnetic. So with the electronic and the magnetic, they're still very controversial. There's a lot of studies done that say they're really not that effective. In fact, South Dakota School of Mines and Technology did a whole research paper on these magnetic water softeners, and they really found no change in the water hardness. And then the most traditional type of water softener, it uses salt.
Yeah, how does that work?
So it's really interesting. So it has two tanks. One is called the mineral tank, and this holds these ion exchanging resin beads, and then the other tank is called the brine tank, and it holds your salt. The resin beads are negatively charged, and they're grabbing hold of these positively charged minerals in hard water, which is primarily your magnesium and your calcium. So the hard water is coming in the top of this mineral tank. It's working its way through these resin beads, and all these minerals are being pulled off. And then that conditioned water, which is soft now, is drawn up from the bottom of the tank and pushed through the rest of your water system. So just pretty interesting what a kind of a simple design.
So what does the salt do?
So, well, that's the next part. So now you're filling all these minerals on these beads.
Right.
So they're completely filled. So after a while, usually after about a week, they need to be recharged or cleaned off. So what happens is you're going to use the controls on your unit. It's either going to be manual or electric. And what you're going to do is you're going to then backwash water up through this, and you're going to flush it. And what's wild is now your system, if you have a whole house water softener, you can't use your water during this process.
How long does it last?
So in general, it takes about an hour up to 2 hours, depending on the unit and how big it is.
So you should probably do this at night.
Right. So if you have an electronic one, it's nice to set it up for generally when you're in bed. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to backwash. So the system's off in your house. Water is pushed up through the beads, so kind of backwards, and it's going to flush out any debris. It goes down your drain. And then the salty water from the brine tank is pumped into the mineral tank, and the salt exchanges places with the minerals, and they clean off the beads, and it gives it back its negative charge.
Wow.
It's wild, huh? And then that's flushed, so that's put down your drain, and then there's a final rinse. So now we rinse off all the excess salt, and we clean the beads, and then your system is turned back on. So it's just really an interesting system that you're using salt to clean the beads, and then the beads clean the water of all the minerals.
Oh, fascinating.
Now, for controlling the cleaning process, there's three main types of systems. One is called timer regeneration. You have meter regeneration and manual. So the timer is really nice because it'll flush and charge on a schedule, like once a week, and you're going to use a formula to figure out when you can do it. Meter regeneration is nice because it uses a water meter to analyze the water use and the hardness of the water, and this can either be analog or digital. And then the manual regeneration is just easy because you go over there and turn it on and off. If you have a really large household, though, a big family, and there's really not a lot of convenient times to have the water off for a couple hours, they have these dual tank water softeners. So one tank is regenerating while the other tank is cleaning the water of all these minerals.
That's
so
interesting.
so water's always available.
Which is nice.
Right.
What type of salt are you going to use?
So you're primarily going to use salt or potassium chloride, and you want to get something that's designed for water softeners.
So not your ice melt.
No, because ice melt, there's going to be a lot of contaminants, a lot of impurities in that. It's going to require you to clean your brine tank much more often.
And you don't care about the contaminants when you're throwing it on your driveway.
Right, exactly. And those small little particles or those small pieces of salt really aren't designed to be used in a water softener.
Right.
And then what's interesting is the sodium chloride versus potassium chloride. Potassium chloride is more expensive. Because a very small amount of that salt, when you're softening your water, gets into your system. And they say it's really insignificant, but if you're on a low salt diet, doctors recommend to use potassium chloride just to be safe. But if you have kidney problems, they recommend that you're using sodium chloride or just basic salt. Now, for the style of salt, you can get solar salt, evaporated salt, or salt blocks. Solar salt is crystals and pellets made from evaporating seawater. So what's wild is it's going to have little pebbles and contaminants in there from the ocean.
From the sea?
Yes, the evaporated salt pellets are more refined. So a little more expensive, but it's going to have far less contaminants, and you're not going to have to clean the brine tank as often. And then you have salt blocks, which are usually for specific units. So you need to check your manual.
So the salt blocks generally come unwrapped, so it's just a big block of salt.
Unwrapped, or like one side will have cardboard on it so you can pick it up.
Right. So just make sure you're looking at it before you're purchasing it, because people do step on them. They're on pallets. They're in the yard,
out in the open.
The dirty store.
Yeah,
so.
and the hardware stores are dirty, man.
Yeah.
There's dust and dirt everywhere.
And we've tried to clean them, but they're salt.
It melts.
Yeah.
So it's definitely worth looking at if you're buying salt block. Go down a layer when you're getting your salt
or up
block.
a layer. Go to the top, or right in the middle.
There you go.
What are some top-rated companies for salt?
So you have Diamond Crystal, Culligan, and Morton. The Culligan, the only place I've seen it around here in the Chicago area is at Do It Best hardware stores.
Really?
And then Morton had one that was rated very high. It has added cleaning additives to clean the resin beads, and they use surfactants and citric acid. So it helps add to the life of your resin beads in the mineral tank.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What sort of maintenance do you have to do on a water softener?
So primarily the brine tank. You should be checking the salt level at least once a month. You want to keep that tank at least a quarter full at all times. When you're filling this, you want to be 3 or 4 inches above the water line, and then the salt should be 3 or 4 inches below the top. But you need to check your specific model and see what they recommend. And before you add your salt, make sure you're breaking off any pieces that are stuck to the sides. And then if there's any large pieces that are stuck together, you want to break those apart.
What about the resin beads?
The resin beads just last and last, usually 15 to 20 years.
Wow.
So there's not much you have to do with those.
Are there different sizes of water softeners?
So you need to pick something based on the amount of water use and then your water hardness.
Okay, so how do you figure any of this out?
So math. So the average person uses about 100 gallons per day of water. And you're going to multiply this by the number of people in your house. So let's say we have 4 people in the house times 100.
400.
And then per week times 7. So we got 2,800.
Right.
And then we're going to multiply this by the water hardness. So you need to know what your water hardness. So either get a test or look online and find out what your community is. But let's say we have 10 grains of hardness. We're going to multiply that 2,800 times 10 grains, and you're going to get 28,000 grains per week that we need to clean. And so we're trying to find a water softener that's going to fit into that range, because we want the water, the regeneration, so the cleaning of the beads, we want that to be done about once a week. That's the most efficient. That's the mathematical formula.
So what does that mean for the size, though? Like, back to my original
So,
question.
you're looking. So, like for this case, we'd be looking for something that cleans 28,000 grains per week.
So, like on the package, on the label, it's going to
Yes,
say.
exactly.
Okay. What kind of cost are we talking about for running a water softener?
So monthly, you're probably only looking at $2 to $15 per month for the salt, and then you have a little bit of electric and the water cost. But the savings, so if you're using 50% less detergents, you're not having to clean that soap scum on your tubs and showers, so you don't have to buy chemicals for that. Your water heater, you have those increased fuel costs just to heat the water. So a few of the different sites I've looked at say that you really kind of break even when you look at the costs of reducing the amount of minerals in your water compared to all the chemicals and cleaning that you have to do.
Do you have any tips on installing a water softener?
So you're primarily trying to find a space where you're going to be able to put these two units, and you usually want to put it near the water heater. You want to put it before the water heater. You don't want to install it on the hot side after a water heater because that hot water can damage the unit.
Really?
You're going to need a floor drain or a utility sink for it to flush, and then you're going to need electric. And then when you put this in, I would say if you have copper, PEX, CPVC, I would use push fit fittings. It just makes the job easy. And I'll tell you, SharkBite, I've been using them recently on some of our projects, and they just do an amazing job. So you cut your lines, you make sure that you push this in, like if you're working with copper, you push it in 1 inch, and you have a watertight connection that you can do in seconds. And
instead of soldering.
Oh,
what
yeah,
a mess.
Yeah. If I would have had these when I was investing, oh man, the savings of time and energy. Houses that I almost set on fire when I was soldering. So just really cool. And they have really nice valves too. In a water softener install, I would probably have a main valve, and then I would have 2 valves going to the water softener, so that if you ever had to replace or repair the water softener, you can have a bypass.
Right.
You can bypass it.
What are some top-rated companies for a water softener?
So you have Fleck, it's Fleck, Water Boss, Morton Salt, Aquasana, which is AQUASANA, Iron Pro, and Culligan were all rated very high. And then I really like units that are labeled with the NSF rating, and that's the National Sanitation Federation when we were talking on the dryer episode.
Right. I was going to say, everybody knows that.
So you want to look for your warranty also. So on the control valve, the mineral tank, you want about a 3-year warranty on the controls and 10 years on the tank. And a good quality water softener should last you about 20 years.
I was really worried you weren't going to spell in this episode, but you managed to pull it off.
Thank you. One thing you need to be aware of when you're thinking about purchasing a water softener is whether it's restricted in your neighborhood. So there's some states and some townships that restrict it because they're worried about environmental damage from the salt that's discharged.
That's interesting.
It's because you're discharging hundreds of gallons of this salty water a year. So there's about 25 communities in California that have banned water softeners, and then there's some areas of Michigan, Connecticut, Texas, and Massachusetts. So that's something you should be aware of.
So how do you find that out?
I would go to your local village. I would call the plumbing inspector, and they'll let you know.
Do you have anything else to add?
Well, I would say, just the first thing I would do is check my local community, see if there's any restrictions. If I'm thinking about a salt-based water softener, what size do you need? So you got to do math.
Right.
So you know how many gallons you use, what your water hardness is, and then you want to get a size that's going to be cleaning the beads about once a week.
What you should really think about, too, is where you're putting your water softener.
Yeah, it's
because,
very smart.
My parents in their garage, they have a small closet that has the water heater next to the furnace, and there is no room for anything else in that closet. It's hard to get the furnace filter in there.
Right.
So they would have to do a lot of extra plumbing outside that closet.
So you'd have to plan it out, make sure you have enough parts. You're going to have to get extra lines. So
right.
Yeah, it's good to plan ahead.
Let's wrap this up.
We're almost done with the home improvement book. We should be done this week.
Why are you saying like I don't know?
Did you know, Cindy?
Yeah, I've got a big part in there, JC.
So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a nice read, and it's going to be a really nice reference for all these projects.
Yeah, I hope so.
So you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe there as well.
If you'd like to email us, you can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.